Atheist or not, it is god awful out here today. I was going to tell you about one of the youngest emperors to ever take the throne in Rome who worshipped a rock, but it's freaking hot out here. He was born Varius Avitus Bassianus. He then changed his name to Elagabalus, which means god of the mountain. It was a form of Baal worship centered around the sun. He was also named Elagabalus. I think it might be too hot for me to convey my message. Look, Pickles has even given up. If anybody wants a part 2, just comment below and I will tell you more about Elagabalus. What I was trying to discover is what gods were prominent in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century Common Era while Christianity is developing. Okay, I made it home. My brain is fried. I need to shower. I think my brain might be like an egg. This is what your brain looks like when you've been outside too long. What I was trying to say, I'll probably just make a part 2, is that Baalism was still prominent while Christianity was developing, which is why it would necessitate Jesus being slanderous against Baal in the New Testament. I don't know if he was, but whoever wrote his words needed to diss one of the most popular gods of the ancient Near East who was still being worshipped at that time. Not all Baal worship was the same, and each cult would have their own distinctions, but I do think there are some similarities with the dying and rising aspect. The idea of a sun god dying every night and then being reborn every morning is a common theme through many different cultures, especially because it is a solar deity. It represents life cycles. Baal Hadad's dying and rising cycle is based more on agricultural fertility cycles. Then while I was doing this research, I found that supposedly there is another god, Bel Marduk, which is really Baal, another version of Baal. This is his earlier form. Obviously, again, not the same god, but as these ideas travel from east to west, this is how they are transmitted. So Bel Marduk becomes Baal. Anyway, so Bel Marduk, they found this tablet from 700 BCE. I think is it Akkadian, Assyrian? Poop. I forget. I apologize. But on that tablet, supposedly, Bel Marduk dies. He's bound, put to death, goes underground, and comes back. So again, another instance of this Baal type god dying and coming back to life. Now, Jesus' story, like the first story that we have of Jesus in Mark, he's not a dying and rising God, right? So in the 1st century, a lot of people just thought Jesus was gone and that's that. But then eventually that story grows because they've got to make him more appealing to all the other pagans. And how do you do that? You borrow, adapt their ideas. So they're borrowing these ideas of Jesus conquering death. And I think there's even pictures of Jesus back from the 2nd, 3rd century or something like that with the sun behind him. All these ideas are so intrinsically tied together. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Baal means Lord, or it could also mean Prince. What I find hilarious is that today, people continue to use that title as a reference to Jesus. They call him Lord. They call him Baal. They call him Prince, right? And in the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh, so frustrated with the prevalence of Baal worship, tells his people, stop calling me Baal. I want you to remove that name from your mouth. Throw it away. And he meant that ish. Not just because Baal was a title, but because it was attached to a god who was his rival. And he did not want them to even repeat that word anymore. And then here we go today. Everybody calls Jesus Baal. That to me is like so funny. So anyway, before this video gets too long, I was trying to find images of this tablet and trying to find a freaking translation of the tablet so I can read it with my own papers. And this is what I found. Oh, and another interesting little tidbit is that this dying and rising myth of Bel Marduk
would have been recited during the month of Nisan, the New Year's festivities. Nisan. It's all intertwined. I didn't even get to talk about the boy who worshipped a rock. If anybody wants to hear about some of the wild shit that he was doing during his reign, let me know. I will make a part 2. Or if you have any questions about some of the shit I was just rambling about, if I need to clear up, because yeah, my brain's fried. Let me know. Bye.
Hey, want to join my orgy? Psst, down here. Don't listen to him. I can't breathe. It is time for some religious antiquity. Introducing Rock Boy, also known as Varius Avitus Basanus. This painting is from the 1800s called The Roses of Elagabalus. Born Varius Avitus Basanus took the name Marcus Aurelius Antonius upon becoming emperor. Rock Boy had a wild 4-year reign in Rome. Even the way he took the throne was tenuous. Let's breeze through the boring stuff and then we'll get to the fun facts. Elagabalus was born in 203 in Emesa, which is modern-day Homs in Syria. At a very early age, Elagabalus became high priest to the sun god Elagabal, which is a role that his family traditionally held, so that makes sense. Now this is how he gets power. This is his mom. Her name was Julia Samias, and she was a member of the powerful Severan dynasty. This Roman emperor, Caracalla, was assassinated by this man, Macrinus. This woman, Julia Mesa, is grandmother to Elagabalus. Julia and their entire family are exiled because of Macrinus by this guy. So what do Julia and Julia do? They plot by saying the Elagabalus is actually the illegitimate son of, you guessed it, this guy, Caracalla, the one who was assassinated by Macrinus. So Julia and Julia spread this rumor and paid off the legion living in the area of Syria trying to gain traction. Well, guess what? You throw money at a problem, it works. That legion declared Elagabalus the rightful heir to the throne and started battling with Macrinus. And Macrinus, like a little bitch, I mean, he assassinated the other emperor, but now all of a sudden he's a little bitch and went running off and he got caught. Oobies. I'm not supporting any of this. I'm just telling y'all the tea. And that is how Elagabalus became one of the youngest emperors to sit on the throne of Rome. But not the youngest. In fact, his successor is one of the youngest. Whoa. So at age 14, Elagabalus moves to Rome and then introduces the worship of Elagabal, his chief deity, to the Roman pantheon. And then he starts to build a temple, which is called the Elagabalium. And that is where he housed that sacred stone that you saw on the coin. Now, I should quickly add that because Elagabalus was not well liked, he suffered from what they called a condemnation of memory, which means they basically tried to scrub his memory from the archives. Obviously, we have some information from historians who were writing about him. Unfortunately, though, they could be portraying him in a negative light just because they simply did not like him. So keep that in mind when I tell you some of these stories. Supposedly, Elagabalus would host these lush and lavish parties. At this particular banquet, the petals were stored up into a faux ceiling and then released upon the guests. But there were so many rose petals that supposedly some of the attendees suffocated under the weight of the petals. Apparently, he would have extravagant orgies. I mean, this kid, he's a teenager ruling an empire. He had the freaking treasury in his pocket. What the hell did they think would happen? Okay, anyway. Elagabalus would also have this lottery where he would give weird gifts to his attendees. It could be a bear, camel, eggs, or lead. Elagabalus would wear very decadent clothing, which I believe pissed off the Roman Senate. He would wear gowns of silk with gems, beautiful jewelry, even wear makeup, probably very similar to what he wore as a priest of Elagabalus back in Syria. Anyway, that was very controversial and unconventional for good old Rome. According to some ancient sources, allegedly, Elagabalus would take on traditionally female roles and behaviors and even married a man who was a charioteer of his named Heracles. We don't know if it's a credible source or not, but very interesting to know. I gotta cover up some nin-nins behind me here. Remember how I said Elagabalus is very extravagant?
Well, every day he would have a procession, a carriage with that rock led through Rome, and he would run in front of it backwards. So he would trot backwards in front of this horse and carriage carrying his god, Elagabal. It's not my thing. He also did some super fucked up sacrifices for his god. Scandalous rituals where he would sacrifice elephants and lions and then smear their on the stone. Oh yeah, you know what he would also do? He would take gold and silver coins during this procession and throw them out into the audience, and they would just like freaking ravage each other trying to get to the money. What a little shit. He's like a kid in a candy store. Where were his parents? It's no wonder that Elagabalus's eccentric behavior starts to alienate him from the Roman elite. Basically, he's only promoting his god, and nobody likes that. You hear that? Nobody likes to be forced to worship somebody else's god. Okay. So Julia Mesa, realizing that she cannot reel her grandson in, has another bright idea. Let's appoint your 13-year-old cousin to Caesar. After promoting his cousin to Caesar, he must have thought better of it and realized that there was a plot to kill him. In fact, he began preparing methods in which he could take himself out, if you know what I mean. So his grandmother, Julia Mesa, plotted against her daughter and her grandson in order to get Severus as emperor, because she knew that Elagabalus was not popular, and if he's not popular, she's not popular. So she wanted to maintain power. So she told the Praetorian Guard, you need to pick a side. And guess whose side the Praetorian Guard chose? They Julia and her son Elagabalus. Then they drug Elagabalus and his mother's body through the streets. All of his religious reforms were reversed, and that's when they tried to erase his memory. Elagabal, the god, represented in that conical meteorite, Herodian has this to say about it. The Phoenicians solemnly maintained that this stone came down from Zeus, pointing out certain small figures in relief. They assert that it is an unwrought image of the sun. Zeus would be cognate with El. Baal, Elagabalus, would be their son. I probably left some stuff out. If you have any questions, let me know. But I love to see how people adapt and convey their God throughout different cultures. And that is the antiquity. Follow for more. See you soon.